All right, let's talk about the 10 habits that are absolutely ruining your sleep. We've all had those nights, just a frustrating, exhausting experience. But what if I told you the cause isn't some big mystery? Today, we're going to expose the common, everyday habits that are secretly sabotaging your rest. Welcome to SciSage, where we believe everything can be simple. Our whole goal here is to help you understand the world just a little bit better, one topic at a time. So, does this sound familiar? You're tossing and turning all night. Maybe you even get a full 8 hours, but you still wake up feeling like you haven't slept a wink. You just spend your days feeling groggy, drained. Sound about right? Well, listen, the culprit probably isn't some big, mysterious sleep disorder. Nope. It's much more likely to be the small, seemingly harmless things you do every single day. So in this explainer, we're going to go undercover. We're going to expose these secret saboteurs one by one. Let's do it. Okay, first up, what you consume. Let's call these the internal saboteurs. This is all about the stuff we put into our bodies that can wreak havoc while we're trying to get some shut-eye. All right, the first two on our hit list are probably no surprise, caffeine and nicotine. Now, they're both stimulants, right? But they mess with your sleep in slightly different ways. Caffeine, think of it like a bouncer in your brain. It literally blocks the chemicals that are trying to tell you you're sleepy. Nicotine, on the other hand, it leads to a much lighter, less restorative kind of sleep. And if you're a smoker, withdrawal can actually jolt your wake in the middle of the night. It's a double whammy. And get this, the effect of caffeine is shockingly persistent. 6 hours, that's its half-life. So what does that mean? It means if you have a cup of coffee at, say, 4 p.m., half of that caffeine is still swimming around in your system at 10 p.m., right when you're trying to wind down. Crazy, right? Okay, but what about a nightcap? A glass of wine to help you relax. It's one of the biggest myths out there. Sure, alcohol might make you feel drowsy, and it might even help you fall asleep faster. But trust me, it's a trap. As your body starts to process it, the quality of your sleep just nosedives. It basically locks you out of the deep, restorative stages of sleep, keeping you stuck in those lighter, less useful stages all night long. And believe it or not, the list keeps going. Drinking too much of anything before bed, you know what that means. More trips to the bathroom, more interruptions. That late, heavy meal, it can cause indigestion that keeps you tossing and turning. And yep, even a high sugar diet has been shown to lead to less deep sleep and more waking up during the night. Okay, so we've talked about the internal saboteurs. Now, let's turn our attention outward, to your environment. These are the external saboteurs, the things around you that are sending all the wrong signals to your brain. Let's talk about the biggest offender, your screens. Your phone, your tablet, your TV, they launch a two-way attack on your sleep. First, they're just stimulating, right? Scrolling through social media or watching an intense show keeps your brain buzzing, making it impossible to wind down. And then there's the light. And this is where a super important hormone called melatonin comes in. Your brain naturally produces it when it gets dark. Basically as a signal saying, hey, it's time to sleep. But here's the problem. The blue light from our screens is a powerful mimic of daylight. It literally tricks your brain into thinking the sun is still up. And what does your brain do? It slams the brakes on melatonin production. You're left wide awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you can't sleep. And you know what? It's not just the blue light from your phone. The same exact thing happens with any bright, artificial light in the evening. Think about it. For thousands of years, our bodies evolved with a really simple rhythm. Bright sun during the day, darkness at night. Our modern homes, with all their bright overhead lights, just completely confuse that ancient internal clock. Which brings us perfectly to our third category, our routines. Let's call these the behavioral saboteurs. The funny thing about these is that they're the habits we have full control over, and yet they're often the ones that trip us up the most.
So what do you do when you just can't fall asleep? If your answer is, I lie there and stress about it, you're actually training your brain to associate your bed with anxiety. Not good. So here's the rule. It's called the 20-minute rule. And it's simple. If you're still awake after 20 minutes, get up. Seriously, get out of bed. Go to another room. Do something relaxing, like read a really boring book, and only come back when you actually feel sleepy.
Naps. They can be a total double-edged sword. A short power nap, like 15-20 minutes, fantastic. A great little energy boost. But a long nap, especially late in the day, that's a huge problem. Here's why. All day long, your brain builds up a chemical called adenosine. Think of it like sleep pressure. It's what makes you feel tired. A long nap clears away way too much of that pressure, so when your actual bedtime rolls around, you're just not tired enough to fall asleep. And what about the way we wake up? We sleep in these cycles that last about 90 minutes. Well, that standard blaring alarm clock, it has absolutely no idea where you are in that cycle. So if it yanks you out of a deep sleep stage, bam, you get hit with that awful, groggy feeling. It's called sleep inertia, and it basically sets a tired, miserable tone for your entire day. So with all these challenges, it's really easy to see why so many people reach for what seems like an easy solution. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important point, a cautionary tale about the quick fix trap. Check out this number, 10 million. That's how many Americans have used a sleeping aid in just the last month. The demand for a quick fix is it's huge. But have you ever stopped to ask, what are these pills actually doing to your body? And here is the absolute crucial distinction you need to understand. Sleeping pills don't give you natural biological sleep. They are sedatives. They basically just shut down the higher regions of your brain. So you're not actually sleeping, you're just knocked out. And that sedated state just doesn't provide any of the same restorative benefits as real, natural sleep. So, where does that leave us? What can you actually do? Well, here's your action plan. Let's run through it. Cut off that caffeine at least 8 hours before bed. Avoid alcohol and a ton of fluids late in the evening. Power down all your screens 1 to 2 hours before you want to sleep. Dim the lights around your house to mimic a sunset. And hey, if you can't sleep, get out of bed for a bit. And remember, keep those naps short and early. I know it seems like a lot, but these small changes can make a world of difference. I promise. And that brings us to the end. Look, I know we just went through a lot, but you don't have to change everything all at once. The most powerful changes always start with one single step. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What is the one habit, the one thing you're going to change starting tonight?